everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 5 of Death Parade. Woo! I am so excited because these last few episodes have been really good. Like, the first 2 episodes being like a front-to-back reimagining of episode 1 with episode 2, and then episode 3 was so heartwarming and sad, and then episode 4 was just in-your-face, insane and intense, and yet also heartbreaking. And we're finding more about Decim, and he's getting more and more interesting. We still have the black-haired girl that's mysterious, but it's painting such an interesting world, and the lore of this world is getting slowly built upon, which is really exciting, right? So with that being said, I do have a couple comments before we start this episode. First, since there is a connection with Death Note to Death Parade, I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. Please don't let me know. Let me be not spoiled until the end of the series. When we get to the episode 12, then we can talk about, we'll probably do a live stream for Death Parade and we can talk about its connection to Death Note. Maybe I'll know by then, but I don't want to be spoiled, so please no spoilers. But Morales said, since we were talking about Death Note in a previous episode, you know, what if, and this is kind of a spoiler for the Death Note musical, so if you don't want to be spoiled about the Death Note musical, just kind of ignore this next minute. But in the Death Note musical, Light and L die at the same time. And so Morales was saying, what if Light and L ended up together in the Death Parade, death limbo that is Decim's little bar there? What would end up happening? And I'm like, well, here's what probably would have ended up happening. That would be amazing, and I would love to see that, because L would probably be like trying to scientifically measure each and everything. It would be like calmly like being like, oh, Decim, can you make me like a Shirley Temple? Elle would be like downing Shirley Temples and would probably become best friends with Decim. And then Light would be done in like 5 minutes. Light would hate the games. He'd say they were rigged. He would try to beat them out. We'd be in like a 5-minute monologue inside Light's head. And Decim would be like, okay, we're going to reincarnate Elle and we're going to send Light to the void. I just imagine Decim and Elle becoming best friends, and Light's like having these dramatic, long-winded internal monologues, and then Decim's like, yeah, I made up my mind. It would be amazing, because yeah, it would just like, if the game's whole point is to force out the darkness within someone, Light would be very easy to bring out the darkness. I feel like Elle's darkness would be that like sense of like that non-sensitive duty towards justice where you're willing to sacrifice others for the sake of it. But that would be amazing, Morales. So I so wish we could have like an OVA crossover where Light and Elle both showed up in the Quantum Decim at the same time and they had to play a game. It would be amazing, and I wish we could have that, but sadly no. Truck pointed out that Decim being intent on judging people based solely on their darkness and not the good in them is very interesting. And again, talking about Death Note, that's kind of similar to Light Yagami in Death Note. In Death Note, Light was so focused on just focusing on the darkness of people and not necessarily any good that they'd done, but the crimes they had committed. And so that's that sense of reasoning is kind of similar, right? That there's just no, I mean, I don't want any spoilers, but it seems like there's like a interesting crossover between Decim and Light's views on that. So I feel like Decim in some ways is this weird mixture of Light Yagami and Ryuk. Oddly enough, it's kind of fascinating, but I just feel like that's the case. So just something to think about as we move forward. And then Tony Simi talking about Misaki, and that we talked a lot in the comments about Misaki and her slapping the assistant and then the assistant killing her. And like, wrong on both counts. Misaki should not have slapped the assistant. The assistant obviously shouldn't have murdered Misaki. But Tony Simi pointed out that it's a very interesting note about the cycle of violence and how doing an act of violence only perpetuates the cycle even further. So I thought that was really interesting and well worth noting. So thank you all for that. But yeah, I gotta get my little stop clock pulled up here now that I'm thinking about it. I thought that the last episode 4, was crazy. I thought it was so intense, like her bashing that guy's head into the arcade was absolutely wild. Did not see it coming. But yeah, that's what we ended up getting. So what can we do, right? But I'm really excited to see where this goes to, y'all. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to start Death Parade, episode 5, and see what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this, y'all. So this episode was a lot. There was so much happening in this episode, and I'm sorry if during the reaction I was just like, because I was just like, I felt like, whoa, we're getting a lot of lore all at once, which honestly, I didn't say this at the beginning of the reaction, but I was like, next episode's going to be like nearly the halfway point. I'm going to watch episode 6, and then the OVA Death Billiards, and then episode 7, because that's what Patreon had voted on. And so they were like, oh, watch episode 6, then Death Billiards, and then go to episode 7. So after next week, we'll be at the halfway point, literally. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But I feel like at the halfway point, they are giving us a lot of exposition. Like, we didn't get a death game this episode, which I was fully expecting us to. Instead, we got a Ginti, who is like this big buff and gruff guy. Clavis seems to be like helping to keep him. And Nona is mysterious. We have Oculus, who is quite interesting. And then Carta, what is even happening? So we need to outline our hierarchy here, right? I feel like God's up here, possibly MIA. The way Oculus describes, they're like, oh, God's long gone. I'm like, ah! So possibly in this world, the Lord hath left the building and left it in charge of all these arbiters, which is kind of crazy, right? The idea that God left his angels in charge of life and death, that's mildly terrifying. But we have, at the top, we have that. And then it seems like the next on down is Oculus. Oculus, who has the very, like, the lotus bloom hair that seems to have been there quite some time. Oculus seems to have been there for a wee bit, right? He's fairly old, as far as we know. And that, let's get back on there. So yeah, we have Oculus, and then after that, we have, I feel like it goes kind of two separate ways. We have Castra, who we'll talk about in a little bit, and we have Nona. And Nona, we find out, has been an arbiter for 82 years. That's a long time. 82 years, nearly 100 years, being an arbiter, right? A lot longer than Decim, we find out. Decim's only been an arbiter for 5 years, which is crazy, right? And then Nona's got Decim over here. And he's been there for 5 years. Not very long. He's a wee baby in terms of being an arbiter. And then Castra, who I'm going to write a little bit about her. But Castra has, it seems like Ginti is hers, because she says that she likes dumb guys. And I was like, we don't know how long Ginti has been there, right? And then over here is Clavis, who is in charge of the elevator. In charge of the elevators, and we don't know how long he's been doing that either. Although Clavis seems to know Nona pretty well, so like he's been there for a while. And then we have our mysterious black-haired girl. The black-haired girl, who we find out is in fact human. And we find out that she's been human. The whole thing is that she apparently died. She died and remembered dying. She remembered her death when Decim found her, and he's like, oh crud, we can't play the game with her because she remembers dying. That changes the rules. So what he did was instead, he wiped her memory, right, and sent her to Nona. And then Nona sent her to Decim as an assistant. So we're going to tweak that as we go. But that's kind of crazy. So she's like, for all we know, the black-haired girl has died. She is dead. She's just stuck in this limbo and has not been determined whether she's going to reincarnate or go to the void or not. It's not been determined. So interesting. Then we have the storybook, right? So we go to the house that she's in. We don't know exactly. I'm assuming this is Decim's home. I can't imagine Decim like going into Nona's home to take her there, right? But he took her to Nona's to begin with, so maybe. But anyway, she's at where Decim's home is, and he just stays in the bar. But she's there at the home, And she has this dream involving this story about Jimmy and Chavo. So the storybook that's called, is it Shabbat? It's at the very end, but we have Jimmy and we have Chavo are the two characters in the story. And Chavo is deaf, and Jimmy has a crush on Chavo, but they both end up playing together. Okay. So Jimmy has all these furniture and lots of toys. So, okay, what my first thought is, and I'm just going to theorize, and again, when I theorize about a series, I could be right, I could be way 1,000 times off base. My only thing is, please don't confirm or deconfirm my theories. Let me wallow in my ignorance until the show proves me either blissfully wrong or somewhat correct, right? But my theory is that Jimmy represents Decim because he's got all the toys, the furniture, everything. He's got lots of furniture stuff surrounding him, right? Kind of like the bark. But outside it's snowing, and just then he spots a girl with a puppy that's on the ice, dashing around the ice. But she has like the ice skater's outfit, right? Which makes me think that she's the girl, right? But then who's the puppy? We don't know. And he was immediately took a great liking to this girl, which reminds me, Decim kind of has a crush on the black-haired girl. He's infatuated with her. He just doesn't know, as an arbiter and a non-human, he doesn't understand how to place these feelings or what these feelings even are, right? He took a liking to her because she was smiling in the most charming way. And I feel like the black-haired girl's personality and how he says she's quite refreshing. You know, her personality is what draws him to her, right? And so he worked up the courage to call out to her. And she noticed Jimmy and motioned for him as if to come over there. So he does, but then he falls through a pitfall in the snow. And he started crying in pain. And that's when the girl reached her hand from the top of the hole to help him. And granted, it's really creepy the way that she's smiling because the storybook has a very monster quality to it. That's the only thing I think of was like the storybook from Monster. I'm like, these Japanese shows and they're super creepy children's books. But yeah, he forgot all about the pain. So yeah, maybe it's a reference where Decim has like fallen into this rut where he's not sure about his judgments as the arbiter, and she kind of helps him through that pain and uncertainty. Maybe, we don't know. We're not sure what to think. But then she wakes up and like gets up and goes to thing. Okay, so we've met Oculus now, and we know Clavis and Ginti. We haven't met the girl with the eye patch yet, who is also an arbiter. And then Nona's sitting in front of the skull that belongs to Castra, right? So interesting. All right, we'll go past this OP. But then she noticed the ice skater's uniform. She's like, has that always been there? Maybe from when she died, but she seemed like she was in regular clothes when she died, so I don't know. And so he was told to put up the thing of Chavo, and he's like, I don't know. Nona told me to switch it out. I guess I'm wondering if Nona is trying to jog the black-haired girl's memories. If she's trying to jog the memories so that the girl will remember that she died, or remember who she was, and then Decim can pass judgment upon her. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of is Nona's trying to like kickstart the process maybe a little bit. But he gets memories from this person and says something is odd. The thing that is odd is that we find out later he only got memories on one person, and you're supposed to get memories on two people. So if you only get memories on one, something is amiss, right? Because Nona makes the comment that all humans have memories. Even if they can't remember all of them, they do have them. So yeah, I am glad that this story takes somewhat of a decent twist in terms that the kid turns out to be Ginti, because what I was afraid of was that we were going to have this battle between a man that is clearly in a bad mood and maybe not nice versus this kid, and it was going to be a thing. I was like, the last thing I want to do is have like this older man and kid duke it out. That would have been kind of terrifying. So I'm glad it works out the way that it does. But she turns out to be very nice to the boy and offers him to do things. And she's really nice. And at first, Ginti doesn't seem to, get onto her until it starts to get revealed that the one guy, I thought the one guy, he was like, I thought he had already died once and came down here and then had been sent back and been reborn. But Decim's only been here for 5 years. So that's not enough time for someone to get fully reincarnated and then come back down here, right? Unless time moves very slow here in comparison to the rest of the world. I don't know. But then we go to Oculus playing the world's most badass game of billiards. I want a galaxy billiards set. I want Jedi lightsaber billiard sticks. I like that that Nona has the Jedi lightsaber stick and Oculus has the Sith lightsaber stick. I'm sure it's not in any way scary. So this conversation between the two of them, where she's like, why? 82 years. Has it been that long already? Also, where they're playing billiards at, which looks like his place, is kind of disturbing. It's very dark. It's very grungy. There's like mold and some flowers, but it's very creepy. It's not exactly a homey looking place at all. And he says, and here you say I'm just a nobody. But I mean, I guess in comparison to how long he's been there, maybe. And he says, take a look at this. And then he says on there, since you became a manager, we've played 5,769 times. So a manager, which means we played 170 times per year. Well, I mean, there's 365 days per year. So that's only about half a year. That's like every other day. It's not anything crazy. So Nona, so we established that these are managers. They are no longer arbiters themselves. They've moved up the spiritual ladder to being a manager, which is interesting. Interesting indeed. She says, you sure have lots of free time. Why do I hardly ever win? I'm the man who's closest to being God. He's quite terrifying. Oculus with the eyes that are black. It's almost like a reverse thing. Usually like the pupils are black and the outside, the irises are a color, but here it's reversed. It's very creepy. It's very creepy indeed. And she's like, if you do say so yourself. He's like, it is the truth after all. It's kind of scary, right? And she says, so why can't you win? And he's like, because you don't ever go easy on me. You're the one who told me not to go easy on you, right? That was 82 years ago. Uh-huh. And you've kept up. And I get Nona's thing is she's like, I don't want to slack off because then I won't like my job anymore. It's all downhill from there if I start slacking. I'll get tired of this. And he's like, well, isn't that adorable? So I'm wondering, because he's like, well, that's adorable. You think that you're going to get tired of this. So it almost seems like once you're an arbiter, you can't stop being an arbiter. That's kind of like you have a job and you do it or you get erased. Seems like the way of it. So, I do love this billiard set a lot. I was nervous it was going to end like this. I had to give you a chance. Interesting. No, he's creepy. He's quite creepy indeed. I'm getting a screenshot of it. Yeah, Oculus is kind of terrifying. I don't know what kind of vibes I get from him. They are not good. But I'm like, And so, yeah, we cut back to the scene with them, and that's when this guy starts to remember. And he's not even a guy. I think that's interesting. He's a dummy that's had false memories implanted into him. Interesting. But he starts to remember like he's been there before. And which is kind of creepy. There's like a Pinocchio setup here where he claims to have memories that he doesn't, but he's a mannequin, so it's freaky. And so then apparently all the arbiters have their own way of fighting back. And so we cut back to Nona and Oculus, and he says, I have to say though, it's just like you to get bored from holding back even once. I'm surprised you lasted as an arbiter. As no nonsense as you are, you're just like Decim. And she seems like, doesn't want to acknowledge it. I'm sure you must have suffered terribly. That's an interesting line. Alleviating a little boredom really hits the spot. So that's interesting. Like, what has she suffered with? Like, did she, like, what's going on? How did they become arbiters? Have they always been arbiters? Were they humans that kind of evolved to a higher plane? The way that Ginti talks, it seems like they've always been kind of like these angelic creatures separated from humanity. But We don't know exactly. So are they kind of like a variation of Shinigami? What do we do with it? Arbiters can't stop passing judgments. Like, that's their whole job, right? So that's interesting. It seems like, you know, you have Shinigami that are gods of death, but these guys are not necessarily that. They're just passing judgments to help make a call on whether you're reincarnated or sent to the void. So interesting. You can't stop passing. That would be kind of harsh if you couldn't stop passing judgments. You're always judging people. Interesting. And then he's like, oh, she's like, this is how I alleviate boredom. And asks if he wants some more. They're all done. And he's like, one more game. No, can do. I have to go. There are plenty of other managers in the tower, aren't there? Call one of them. And he's like, but I want you, Nona. So Oculus clearly plays favorites with Nona, but there are other managers, so Nona's not the only one, interestingly enough. And she asks if Clavis is ready. Will I ever be able to turn things around? And then she says, well, why don't you ask God? And he says, God is long since gone. How cryptic! How cryptic! That's such a crazy concept, that all that's left now is this crazy system where these arbiters, these angels, are just passing judgments, and that's all that's left. Ooh, that gave me chills. I was like, okay, all right. So then we go back there, and Decim tries to talk the guy down from stabbing the kid with chopsticks, and he asks about the spider's thread, that it's something from Buddhism that ties back to the spider crawling down, which I always kind of wondered about that. He says the Buddha dangles a spider down to Kandanta, who's in hell, and the spider, just this once, he spared a spider. I always wondered that, because it was like always an old wives' tale in our household that if you see a spider come down the thread, you always let it crawl back up. It's considered bad luck to squash it while it's on the thread. I wonder if it has to do with this. Honestly, I wonder if there's a connection there, because yeah, if you see a spider come down on a thread, it's always considered bad luck to touch the spider. You let it crawl back up. If it touches the ground, then you can squash it. But if it goes back up in the air, you're supposed to leave it alone. I was always taught that since I was a kid. Interesting. He says, Kandanta, who dreams of paradise, climbs the thread. However, many other sinners start following after him, and fearing the thread will break, he sees to it that the other sinners drop off. So, yeah, it's kind of idea that to spare himself, he gets the others away. Which is kind of curious, because it's like there's a darkness there in Kandanta for being selfish and for making sure they don't come with him. So that's interesting. And so I like the idea that Decim's power is the spider's thread, which is tied to Buddhism. And then you have Ginti, who has the bubbles, which is, they all have their own ability. And I like the black-haired girl's like, what the hell? He's like, it would have been better if they'd been kept from seeing it in the first place. Yeah, so that's such an interesting thing, because it's the idea with this thread that it would be better to not be tempted. It sometimes would be better to not be tempted at all than to have that hope put in front of you. Interesting. That's so curious. And then he uses the thread to get the one dummy away. And then the girl tries to help the kid, but she puts him to sleep. And Decim's facial expressions are so intriguing in this episode, because he's genuinely worried about her. He genuinely worries about her being hurt. Like, he really likes her. And he's like, oh, like, yeah, he freaks out about her, like, falling down. I mean, she's already dead. At this point, we know she's already dead, but Decim's still worried about her. And then this kid being evil and turns out to be Ginti instead. Like, what the hell? So we have Death March is the title of the episode. Sad that Pluto is no longer included. Hashtag I always will believe Pluto's a planet. Screw the rest of you. Pluto is a planet. Leave us alone. Lies. Nice. I like that it changes colors. And so, of course, Decim is like, what the hell? I just like this screenshot because there's a man hung up by strings, this kid smiling evilly, the black-haired girl's passed out, and Decim's like, what the hell? Who are you? And the kid's like, you still don't know. You're pretty dense, Decim. And then he goes after the kid, of course, with the strings. He was very much agile like a cat, giving me... Ginti's look is a mixture of Grimjow from Bleach and Renji from Bleach. She's like a crossover of the two of them, right? He's like, when did you get me? Mm-hmm. And then Decim, like, walking over to make sure that she's okay. And Ginti saying, I just put her to sleep, that's all. Do you really value the woman that much? And that's when he, like, bubbles out and turns back to himself. Interesting. I like that the water's tied to him. With his color scheme being orange and reds and fire colors, I wouldn't imagine the water being a thing. He's, oh, well, if it isn't Ginti, like, I didn't know him before, but then when he turns back, he figures out who it is. It's been a long time. And then, oh yeah, and as they were talking, Decim already politely put her on the couch. That's the guest you couldn't pass judgment on, right? He says, why not? When she came to Decim. Okay, so she already had the streak in her hair. She could remember that she was dead. Okay. How did that happen? I've never heard of such a thing. He says, as such, I'm unable to prompt her to play any games. So yeah, so we don't know who she came with. We don't know the person that she showed up with. We just know that he couldn't prompt her to play any games. So instead, I end up having her memories erased and her judgment period extended. And so they're like, have her memories returned. And he says, no, not yet. He's like, then what is she doing here? Well, she's my assistant. She assists with passing judgments, which apparently is forbidden or something very taboo. Because Ginti's like, well, a human. I very much got like King Triton vibes from Little Mermaid, being like, but Decim, she's a human. You're an arbiter. And Decim's like, but Ginti, I love her. I guess that's totally the vibes that I got in that moment. And then he, like, gets himself down. Mm-hmm. Are you out of your mind? She's a human. I like that he has the bartender outfit on as well. I have respect for people who live fulfilled lives. Moreover, her behaviors and opinions are fresh. And there's that smile, right? And I find her fascinating. Yeah, and so he's like, how can you say that so stone-facedly? Well, because Decim's not very good at expressing emotions. But yeah, so Decim reminds me totally of Jimmy in this scenario, and the black-haired girl is Chavo. Interesting. And Ginti's like, I don't understand you. And so then he plays with the toys and has like the water come out of them with the bubbles. Like, what the hell? And then like they're about to go on a brawl, and he says, you've changed. You really want to go at it. Ah, I like it. And then at that point, Nona's like, nope. Nona, who is fierce, she's like, that's enough. And I like that Decim like closes his one eye, like the other eye's closed with his hair, but he closes the one eye. That's so cute. Who told you to do all this? And Clavis is like, dang, this place is bad. I let you do this because you insisted on it. And then, of course, I like that Clavis, I like that no matter who it is, whether it's Clavis, whether it's Ginti and Nona, Decim goes, long time no see. Like, just, he introduces himself in the weirdest of ways. He says, you too, Clavis. He's like, oh yeah, a long time. And then, what are you doing? Never take dumb old Ginti on like this. He's like, dumb old? So we don't know how old Ginti is, but he's apparently not young. He's like, oh, that's true. Says, do you know why I'm here? And so she says, do you know about Quinn's memory test? I've heard about it. Is that what this is? And she says, yes. She's like, you're hopeless. And then he says something. She tells him to shut up. And I love that Clavis like pokes him. Am I shipping Clavis and Ginti just a wee bit? Just a wee bit? Maybe. Maybe. But anyway, she tells him the memory test is that you get 2 guests and they're edited down. and they're sent to us arbiters by the Information Bureau. So there's a whole like assembly line in this. There's a whole corporate ladder. There is like an information bureau in the upper management that sends them these memories and this information. What the hell? And like they form one of our bases for our judgments. And this time you only got memories from one person. So thus he thought I was on my guard. And she's like, no, it's because of him your attention was diverted from the child. She's like, bonehead, there's no such thing as a human with no memories. Even if they're hazy from the shock of dying, their latent memories do not vanish. And he just says, yes, like, do you know why we conduct these kind of tests? No. After drawing out the darkness in their souls as much as possible, you pass judgment. In order to create the necessary extreme conditions, a person's memories are absolutely imperative. And so that's when he remembers her getting upset about the device from the last episode. And she's like, what? And he says, nothing. So yeah, he remembers that she so basically it's a wonder if the games themselves are bringing out her memories and her personality. So maybe he's going to learn more about her to pass judgment if they keep playing the games, even if her memories don't come back. Or will the games prompt her memories? We don't know. But he's not telling Nona this, which is interesting. And he says, I'm sorry. And she's like, okay, we're good then. She's like, just make sure that you test both memories to make sure everything's okay. We don't want to keep having these black-haired girls show up and be a problem. If the memories are not sent to you, you cancel the game. Interesting. Yeah. So then I guess the question is, if you have to cancel the game, what ends up happening? Like, what do they end up doing if you cancel the game? That's such a curious thing. What do we end up doing? She says, Clavis, get the elevator. Okay. And then Miss Nona. What about this gentleman? And that's when we find out that it's just a dummy. Okay. And I like that Ginti makes fun of him, being like, your stupidity knows no bounds. So then we go to this crazy set piece. This whole set piece with Castra is the most insane thing that this show's given us, like, out of everything so far. Like, what? Excuse me, what? What are we talking about? There's this big-ass throne, all these wine glasses with, like, blood coming down from them into the glasses. And this girl with a crazy, like Marowak skull on her. And she's, like, sifting through, like, various things. What? And it's like a map of the world. Saying, oh, did your boy not do well? Very perceptive, Castra. I like just this whole fishbone tail thing is crazy. I love it. Quinn's test. How many years has your boy been an arbiter? 5. He's still preferable to that idiot. Oh, you mean Ginti? It says, oh, well, and her lollipop that she's licking is of the earth. The earth is the lollipop. She's like, I do like my men simple-minded. And what's the situation? Same as always, they're dying too fast. 7,000 per hour. All righteousness is in competition with itself. I'm surprised it doesn't lose interest. Interesting. So it's basically just talking about how the people of the world are like basically destroying each other and just creating all this death for them to deal with. Amazing. Nona, the Information Bureau could use some too. Ask Oculus for some relief in here, will you? So basically trying to get relief for all the death and stuff going on. Like, I'm like, does she drink the wine of the dead, the blood of the dead once it all, like, comes through? Is that how she disposes of the dead? What? That set piece is just absolutely insane. What? I love it. I just love it. It's like, I know. Huh. Alleviating a little boredom really hits the spot. How aggravating. He's so laid back, he's got flowers growing out of his ears. Yeah, she's saying, like, looking at all these people dying and all these glasses and everything, and, like, the death and destruction, and he's up there playing billiards because he's bored. It's wild. I love the set piece here that you're seeing. It's just so freaking cool. What the hell? And he's like, don't what brings you here, me. You judge that woman right now. It's not possible for an arbiter and a human to be together. And Clavis is like, Ginti, let Decim handle this. It's his human. Even Miss Nona says so. Yeah, Ginti doesn't like the fact that Decim has this girl helping him. He doesn't like it. It's not for us. It is not for us to butt in on how Decim passes judgment. Yeah, so each of these arbiters have their own means of passing judgment. Interesting. And I'm assuming they have their own little worlds. Like Castra has this crazy setup. I'm assuming that's her way of gathering info or passing judgment. And he says that Ginti has people coming. Interesting. And Decim's like, what about me? He's like, nope, you got the day off. You spend it with your lady friend. But instead, he's super cute, and he takes her back to, I'm assuming, his house, or a house he's made for her, and he, like, using the strings. I love that he uses the strings to lower her in, and then he tucks her in with the blanket with the strings. That's freaking precious. Yep. And then he just kind of stands there for a minute, and then leaves. I can't help but ship it. I really can't. And so Jimmy said to the girl, let's play. And then we go back to the dream that she had. But the girl just smiled at him and didn't answer. The girl could not hear, so she didn't know what he said. So it's like there's always this barrier in between them. And it talks about how Jimmy wanted to convey his feelings, but he wasn't able to reach her, which very much seems like Decim and the girl's situation. He wants to talk to her about how he feels, but he can't vocalize it. He played in the snow and laughed. And the girl did what Jimmy was doing. And Jimmy was very happy. But he didn't yet know her name. But he felt somehow the two of them would get along very well. Again, it feels very much like the situation here. And then the mom told her the girl's name was Chavo. And he kept repeating Chavo and Chavo again. Someday I'll convey my feelings to her. And he promised to the stars in the night sky. So the question is Decim supposed to be the person in the story, or is there someone else that died when she died, or is there someone else connected to the story? We don't know, right? We're not sure how that goes. We just know at the very end here in the little house with the story called Shavot. There's Nona with the storybook. Interesting. Man, we get so much lore in this. I like Ginti's character a lot. Ginti being this hothead. I like him. The Castra woman and her whole world, so cool. Love the set design. Oculus is terrifying. I don't like him. He seems like, I don't hate him, but he feels like a very fearsome character, but we don't know why yet, right? We don't know what to do with his character yet, but so intriguing. And then for poor Decim, he doesn't want to pass judgment on her because he wants to keep her around. I'm like, can she become an arbiter? Can she stay with him? Please? I don't know. I don't know how that works, but oh my gosh, y'all. So yeah, that was this episode. It was really, really good. We had no death games, but we learned a lot about this world, and it's quite crazy. So I'm very curious to see what we're going to get next. So I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers, but I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion, and I look forward to next week. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 6 of Death Parade. Bye.